don't focus there. It'll easily distract you, okay? But you can.
Okay.
Okay. Come on in, roommates. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. How you doing?
I'm okay. How about you?
You know, listen, I ain't gonna do no complaining.
Right.
Super excited about you being here, for real. Because I feel like, oh shoot. Okay.
You good.
I'm jumpy, okay. Super excited about you being here, no doubt about it. And really think that we have a bunch to impart on the people tonight.
I believe so.
You know, with June being Men's Mental Health Month, and then just the state of everything right now. I mean, it's wild. Yeah. Like, we're living in a crazy space and a crazy time right now. And so when I get the opportunity to debrief and to spend time with my roommates and my house guests, okay? I am always overjoyed because, you know, it's us having the opportunity to be used by God, okay? And that's just what I believe and what I feel. So, roommates, we did not plan, for some reason, God keeps me aligned with my guests, because here we go sitting here in navy blue and denim as if we didn't plan this. Which is crazy.
Very crazy.
And so just super excited to know that the alignment is there, right?
Yeah. Excited for you and all that you are bringing to our community. I'm like super proud of you.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Especially, you know, some of that walk personally that I've been on in the journey. And so it is super excited. Okay. So we didn't hear our chatter at the beginning, y'all, but y'all came on in the building, and we are going to take the time to formally introduce our house guest, okay? This gentleman here, he is a devoted husband, father, a businessman, an authorized and independent agent for one of the top insurance agencies in the world. Okay, he's my personal insurance agent, and moreover, he is a personal friend of mine. And so, roommates, if you guys, without further ado, will clap it up for Mr. Nicholas D. Haynes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was dope.
Wonderful.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, well, this is all the truth. And so I know this has been in the making for at least a half a year. This is a busy man. But you know, I think today is when it was meant to happen. Obviously, it is happening, but simply because, you know, being a businessman, being a successful man amongst the Black community, and still just being a man navigating in life as a husband, as a father, and just being transparent about what state of mental health that you come up against, right? I mean, none of us are perfect. All of us deal with certain things. Some of us carry our loads, make our loads that we're carrying look a little bit easier than other people, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, we are all in a space that we've dealt with in some capacity or another, you know, some forms of mental health, okay? Yes. So I believe you keep up with Rumor Has It a little bit.
I do.
So we always start off here with a Bible verse.
Okay.
All right, and I think that Proverbs 24:16 is kind of fitting for us, right? And so it reminds us that for though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. And what this emphasizes is resilience, and strength is not in never failing, but in always rising, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so with that, I just want us to be reminded of a few things, right? So here at Roma Has It, we hold a space to be transparent about the things that we're going through, to be supportive of the things that our roommates may be experiencing, and just being in the business of creating safe spaces. Sometimes folks are not really able to really tell their truths about things because of stigma. Yeah. You a man, right? You're supposed to be macho. Shame.
All that. Yeah.
Guilt. Right? Yeah, shame and guilt will get us every time.
It will.
Oh my God. Okay.
So that's dope to create the safe space, because you got to break those barriers down.
You have to break the barriers down. And so we just really laid you out here about who you are and all of that good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to start with Nick, the businessman, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you guys are just not joining us, hey, we're roommates. I see you guys are coming in. If you guys are just not joining us, Nick is so I want to make sure I get it right. Yeah. So you are an authorized, independent, what is your role within your business affiliated with State Farm?
So yeah, we are licensed independent agents. Oh, okay. But yeah, the entity is owned by us. So my staff, those are all of my employees per se. Mm-hmm. But the products that we sell are licensed obviously through the parent company. But everything else it all falls on us.
It falls on you.
Yeah. From the marketing, hiring. I'm the janitor a lot of the days. Like, you got to do it all. Yeah.
Well, that's what comes along with business, right? I had to really create official titles and things for people to do here at Roma Has It behind the scenes, because you can't do it all. You need the support that you need to be successful, right? And so we met over a decade ago, and we met as co-workers first.
Yep, she did.
In a whole nother realm away from insurance, but you were still always that businessman and creating space for people to be okay. And then you shifted and you started to get into, business ownership and stuff like that. So before we get off into what the options are related to life insurance and roommates, I want you guys to understand that I am here to serve in a multitude of capacities, and one of those is to bring forth resources to my roommates, because it's so many things that we do not talk about, and that is associated again with that guilt, shame, and all of that type of stuff. But tonight we're going to be talking about life insurance. You're going to let us know all about the options and
options, here to dispel some myths about it, and just kind of break down just some tough questions about it. So yeah, that's what we're here to do.
So y'all tune in and y'all put some questions in the chat, and we'll ask Nick the questions in a moment. But why the insurance business for you?
Well, I started out in the mortgage industry before we met.
Okay.
So I was one of the youngest account execs at the time. I kind of fell in love with the hustle and bustle, the fast-paced industry. And so once that market tanked, that's how we met. I kind of shifted gears a little bit. Social advocacy has always been something that's been important to me. And so that role that I found myself in was extremely fulfilling. The pay wasn't what I needed, but it's not all about the money, right?
It's not.
It's not about that.
It's not.
However, it was very fulfilling, but I decided to look into insurance. I heard some positive things about it. Great company, longevity, financially stable, all that stuff. And once I started, it was just natural for me. I really enjoy helping people, really enjoy getting out, meeting people. And so that's really what insurance is about. So it fit me well.
And that's great. And you obviously played a role. Like I said, not only do we sit here acquainted with one another, but you literally are. I have home, life, car insurance directly through you as an agent, and so you have been really instrumental in making sure that I am insured in places, right? Yes, please.
Roommates.
Roommates. Roommates is good.
She is so phenomenal. As soon as I opened up my business, she was there to support. So just publicly, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely have a ton of policies because you care.
Because I care.
Because you care. And that type of insurance and that type of protection is important to you.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yes.
It is very important to me. And speaking of that, like, what are some myths that are associated with like insurance policies, and what are some things you said a moment ago that you would like to dispel some of those myths and even some of those misconceptions about insurance?
So life insurance can become a convoluted topic. Mm-hmm. You know, you have various policy types, but one of the biggest myths, I think, is just the expense. You know, a lot of people feel or think it's a lot more expensive than it is. And number two would be just the lack of conversations that we have about it, especially in our community.
Especially in our community. It's not until the very end that we, you know, that life insurance is one of those tricky things. Of course, you know that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's either a person has it or they don't. Yeah. It's just enough, right, to cover maybe funeral expenses, or it can be something as big as leaving behind legacy, right?
So
yes,
I'm glad you said that. I typically have 3 or 4 buckets that I put policies in. That first policy you mentioned is the burial insurance. We have a phenomenal product, affordable product, and it will cover burial expenses. That's perfectly fine, okay? So we do have that.
Okay.
The second option...
Affordable is what was like ding, ding, ding to me, because a lot of people look at insurance as like, well, I don't really have to have it. Oh, it's just another bill, you know, for me. But go ahead, sorry.
No. I've heard so many renditions and explanations, and I respect them all. You know, I'm not here to judge anyone, but, you know, it's also my job to educate and to get the word out. And so, yeah, it's affordable. That one policy is very affordable, and it allows people that, you know, ends are tight. You know, it's a tough time for a lot of folks.
Yes,
a lot of folks are fearful about the future. We won't dive into all of that stuff, but it's fact. It's what I deal with daily. Yep. And so, what is that budget allotment? So yeah, that's tier 1.
Okay.
The second tier is a policy where you may be able to leave your family members maybe 5 or 6 months worth of expenses. Okay, so those policies aren't priced bad. Totally good policies for sure, and we sell a lot of those as well. The third bucket, though, is what we really want to talk about, and that's the possibility of leaving your legacy with a substantial amount of tax-free money to do some things in your name. And so those are kind of the buckets that I will talk to individuals about just to see where they are, so I can try to help them out.
And just to kind of clarify the buckets, right? So the first bucket, I feel like you said it's like burial expenses. What is the name of that?
So we have what we call an instant answer term. And so one of the reasons why it's such a hot seller for us right now, it's not only the budget. Folks are busy. Yeah. People are busy. You know, you're at work all day. You're dealing with things at home. And so with this policy, it's just a phone call.
Yes.
You literally are able to get the policy same day. It's issued same day.
Okay.
And it's as low as $21 a month.
A month. Wow.
No medical exam. So those are one of those policies, the death benefit isn't as large, but it's the ease of it, and it's the fact that you have something.
Right, to cover at minimum those expenses.
At minimum, yes.
Okay,
yes.
And then tier 2, would that be considered a term?
still considered a term
Okay.
or a whole life policy, but the death benefit typically, again, if you're thinking small, and I ask tough questions.
Yes.
When we talk about life insurance. And one of the things that I ask is, if you did not make it home tomorrow from work, what is that going to look like to your loved ones? How are they going to feel? And once you answer that question and are honest with yourself about the answers which you want to leave them, that's how we determine which bucket you'll go in.
Okay.
The larger amount, that means we've actually sat down, thought about, hey, do you want to make sure that your expenses are the same and are covered? What people don't think about when the death of a breadwinner happens, their salary's gone as well.
Yes.
And so, it's a heartbreaking story I have, I'll be quick, but
No, it's fine.
there's
Take your time.
a customer that I have, and her husband died Christmas Eve of 2023.
Okay.
46, 47 years old.
Young man.
Very young. Had maybe a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. And him and I just never got around to closing the deal. He asked me about it several times, but he was in sales. Always on the road.
Always on the go.
Always on the go. But anyway, you know, the moral of the story is he died. He only had a work policy, which only covered his salary, but he was heavy commission. So they lived well. They lived really well.
Right.
Off of his commission, but his base was still maybe 45, whatever it was.
Right. But that's what you're getting. You're not going to get it based off of
The commission.
The
That's
commission.
how most jobs are.
Wow.
And so, fast forward, you know, she called the office about maybe a year later. They were selling their house. So the support that those children needed in that community, the support that she needed, they could no longer afford it.
Right.
And so, not to get way off topic, but
No. This is perfect.
those are the things that we need to think about with our children, with our loved ones. You know, are you going to be okay if they have to sell the house within months of you passing? And so those are the tough conversations. It's morbid, I get it.
Yeah.
But you have to talk about it more.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, no one really wants to have that conversation. And, you know, when you just pose that question about, you know, being the breadwinner and, you know, what would the loss of you mean or be to your family outside of grief, right? Obviously, our families are going to grieve no matter what is left behind. But where we have to be mindful, and I'm speaking directly of myself, one thing my grandmother gifted me, one of the things my grandmother gifted me at my probably the only thing she gifted me at my 18th birthday was my insurance policy that she had for me from, I don't know how old the policy was when I got it. I mean, 18 years old. That was 20 something years ago. More like 30 years ago. And so, my grandmother sat me down on my 18th birthday and she was like, listen, I have this insurance policy that I've had on you for years. You're working now, you are a mother. I was a mother to my oldest born. And she was like, you need to take this insurance policy on. And I was still at home with her and she was like, listen, you can let a light bill or a gas bill lapse. You do not let this insurance lapse. And so early on, I remember when the insurance man used to come to our house walking in every month with a briefcase. It was just something that was always embedded in me because of my grandmother. And she was the person that kind of had insurance on those that couldn't afford it. But if we were kids and once we grew up, she gave me. So that policy now to this day is probably close to 40 years old. I still have that policy.
That's amazing.
That I inherited from my grandmother. But since then, I mean, when you told me you were going into your own stuff with State Farm, I was like, listen, I gotta have car insurance. I want more life insurance. I gotta have, you know. And I was like, listen, I'm gonna take everything over from your competitor, Allstate, and I'm gonna bring the business over there to you. I want to support you in what you're doing, and then I gotta have insurance anyway. So I might as well sit down with somebody that I trust, who gonna lay it out for me, have those tough conversations with me, and help me choose the things that were right for me and my family. And so I can honestly say I don't know a time, rather, before my grandmother gifted me my policy when I was younger, or even the fact that I've kept it going. But my daughter is now a mom, and I told her the moment she got my grandbaby's Social Security card, I'm like, you need to get your baby some life insurance, period. Nobody isn't, we all gotta go, but no one knows when. And when you get the insurance, you're not anticipating, right, that something is gonna happen no time soon, but you can't sit on it because you just never know, right?
You just never know. And that is the toughest part about starting the conversation. You just never know what could happen. And so when you put it off, there's several things that could happen aside from, something like death. But what else could happen? Something with your health could change. We had another situation where she was maybe 22, developed breast cancer, 22 years old. And so her parents had a policy for her, almost similar with your grandmother, since she was a baby.
Yeah.
Luckily, she has it because now she's no longer insurable. And so that's the other factor to think about when pushing things off.
You get sick.
You just never know. And so if you are healthy, this is the best time to look into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for clearing that up.
No problem.
We had to take care of a little bit. I mean, all of this is business, but we had to take care of that up front.
Yeah, we had to.
Any parting things about where can my people find you at? Because we're going to shift gears a little bit.
Sure. My website is www.coveredbynick.com. And my office phone number is 630-315-2410. You can also catch me on Instagram at getcoveredbynick, or contact Tamika. She can help me get in touch.
Contact Tamika, okay. I can get y'all in touch with him, okay? And so, my fave is saying pin it, pin your information. So I'll make sure that I put it all in the comment, and then I'll pin it at the end of this, and then it'll stay up. Just so you know, this I'll send it to you, but you'll be able to share this with family and friends or other supporters. It'll be on YouTube, Instagram, and my Facebook page. So you'll definitely get a chance to.
Okay.
All right. So let's sit back and relax, and let's talk about men, black men, the weight of it all, the weight you all have to carry.
Yeah. It's
heavy.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And so what does, and it is not a trick question, what does being a man mean to you, and how has that definition changed over time? Remember, once you was an 18-year-old man, and now we ain't gonna tell you your age today, but you're 40-something years old.
I'm old. I'm old now. Just call me old. Yeah. Being a man to me means being a provider, being a source of stability, a source of strength.
Yes.
That's what I know of being a man. Someone that the family looks to when they need a little bit of grounding.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I encompass being what a man looks like and what a man does. Yeah.
And you were blessed to have the opportunity to grow up in a household with your father.
Absolutely.
So you were able to kind of see what that looked like. How, growing up in the household with your dad, how has that influenced how you've grown in your manhood and your perception of manhood as you were growing up and got to adulthood?
It's a huge deal. It's a huge factor. Being able to see him every single day, being able to see his work ethic, being able to see, when he's tired at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and me and my sister still there, just waiting for him, and he's still performing for us.
Wow.
All the way through college. I just went to NIU. If my battery died, my dad would come and jump the car. Like,
wow.
Seeing that was and has been a great blessing for me. But it's also allowed me to see how someone could struggle if they didn't see that.
Yes.
So it's given me a clearer picture on, how things could have been different.
But even despite having that prime example of fatherhood, manhood right there as you grew every step of the way, I'm sure it's certain things that as a man, as a husband, as a father, you could not have anticipated, even with having that right there before you, right?
You don't know the stress that your parents are going through. You don't know how it feels to have that weight when you're a child. You don't understand that they've had the weight of maybe a tough employer, a tough day, facing some type of discrimination in the streets that's just completely random. All of the things that are placed on their back, that's what I couldn't anticipate, how heavy that load was. So that was the thing I did not anticipate, that feeling like that. Yeah.
So, have you ever felt like you needed to be everything for everybody? And if so, how do you handle that, right? Because you have to show up for yourself, right? To be well for the people that's around you. But what are those pressures that a man feels, no matter, you're a businessman, you're a man that has an order, you're a man that grew up in a 2-parent household, but there's still pressures even on you, though on the outside looking in, it may appear that you really have it all together. So how have you balanced, like, trying to be everything to everybody, but then also really those unspoken pressures, just with being a man and having all of those titles and expectations on you?
It is extremely tough. You obviously, again, have this idea in your head of what a man does and what he provides. And one of those things that I mentioned was strength. And so you have to fight through those moments. At least that's what you think.
That's what you think.
That's what you think. So you got to keep fighting. You got to hold certain things in because you don't want to share it, and you don't want to come off as weaker. And so you literally just, as men, you just keep grinding.
But you keep grinding, but you also just said something that's key. And I understand it even from a woman's perspective, a single mother perspective, right? Yeah. You got to hold it together on the outside, but sometimes on the inside, you flat out crumbling. You really, you want to scream, So in the vulnerability of it all, when are you able to, or when are men ever able to really take off that cape and in some instance be able to be vulnerable? And vulnerability looks different for everybody, but sometimes just simply being transparent about I'm tired. This is a lot. So for you, what does that look like?
I don't know. I literally feel as if you have to keep going. And what happens is, in a lot of households, a lot of people throughout the country, you start to self-medicate in ways, whether that's alcohol, whether that's shopping, you find ways to cope with your long hours at work, or to justify, this is why I'm working so hard, all unhealthy things.
Yeah.
But it is really difficult to not take that route and just say, yeah, I do need the time for myself. It's difficult to do. It is difficult to do.
And so speaking of coping amidst, just living, providing, right? Yeah. Being this image of a dad to your one and only child, and showing up and being a husband and owning your business and having staff and all of this stuff, when is it that you, and how is it that you cope with those pressures?
So one of the things that I did seek out was therapy. I did go through a couple of therapists, but I did find...
You went through a couple of them?
I went through a couple of them.
Okay.
But I did find one. She's a dope sister.
Okay.
And that helped.
Okay.
You know, just being able to talk about things to someone who you feel are... They don't have a dog in the fight.
That's it.
You know,
unbiased.
They're unbiased.
Unsolicited too, because you showed up here, right?
And I felt that because, sure, I had friends. You know, I've been to you a lot. It's still just a different response and a different connection that you get from that stranger. That you know. Yeah. So that helped me a ton. Yeah. And
I'm glad that you say that because you know. Most everybody knows that I'm a therapist, right? Like professionally on paper, a therapist, right? Yeah. And so, but my friendships, to my friends and my family ships, they look just like being a support, right? I don't, you know, you get some people that really have a misconception about me as a therapist or a therapist in general. So I'm not looking to analyze you because first of all, it's a conflict of interest. What anything that I would give you, I would give to my child. I would give to my best friend, meaning any type of advice, any type of support, just you being my friend. So when you're coming to me, I'm not ever looking at, you know, my friends or my family as a client of mine because that's different. I mean, I know parts of your story that I have to learn parts of my clients' stories, right? And so I'm glad that you say that though it's okay to talk to whoever we talk to, it is different. Therapy is a different, it's formal. It's the formality of it all where you're sitting down and and if you have a damn good therapist, then they're helping you to explore the things and connect the dots that sometimes you are just on this hamster wheel of life and you cannot identify some of the things that have connected to why you react in a certain type of way. You don't know your triggers, right? You've suppressed certain things. And so, wow, I tell people all the time, I'm a therapist with a therapist. And so I've gone to therapy multiple times over the years. The very first time, you know, it happened at the job. They sent me from the job, and it was really some retaliatory shit. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I feel like
it was you should. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because it was really someone being spiteful and trying to put something on the books about me, and then and I had 3 EAP sessions, and so. Those 3 sessions were so phenomenal and life-changing that I had to see it through. So then I started to pay through my insurance and out of my own pocket, and I stayed for almost a year with this lady. Wow. But God just do things in the darndest ways, and that was my introduction. And though it was up under circumstances that I knew I was being, targeted, right? It was unfair. But it introduced, and I wasn't formally a therapist then. I think, you know, I was working towards that. I had my master's, but I was working towards that. And so, so with that being said, what are some of the things you do when you, and it may be aligned with coping, but just really some of those things that you do to
decompress a little bit.
Decompress and kind of stay strong through it all, even though sometimes you really want to just unwind and disconnect, right? So decompress, disconnect, but still stay the course.
Still stay the course. I think it's important to really do some self-reflection and to really try to find out what your hobbies are. What do you like to do? What brings you joy? And I don't think we have the time to do that. We're always hustling and bustling on to the next task. But if you start to take your mental health serious, then you have to sit a while and figure out what is it that I like to do. And so that's step one. Okay. You gotta know what you like to do, because if it's just picking up something just to say you've done it, you're gonna get bored and you won't stick to it.
Yes.
And so finding out what you like to do. So for me, I like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You know, that really helps decompress me.
Yeah.
And I'm a people watcher.
Okay.
So like, it's funny stuff you see in the gym.
Yeah, I agree.
It's almost a source of entertainment for me. But, you know, quirky little things, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
When I'm done, I feel a ton better. I feel a ton better. And so to your point of still masking a lot, but I'm still finding ways to calm myself, to just, you know, keep pushing. Yeah.
And so what are some of the things, and you don't have to get specific, but what are some of the things you struggle with asking for help with?
Everything. I do not like asking people for help.
Why is that?
I like helping a lot more than I'm the person at Christmas that opens his gifts at midnight, because I'm just enthralled with what I got everybody else.
Okay.
That's just how I am. So help means that I can't figure it out, or it means some sort of failure if I'm seeking help. That's one way.
One aspect, okay.
Another aspect is men especially, we hate to ask for help and not receive it.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you're not asking again.
Right.
So it could be one of those two things. Depending on what it is, you may not even ask.
So like you said, it comes down to like, is this something, you know, is this something that I truly need help with? But if it's something that you can kind of figure out or navigate, you're gonna find ways to do it on your own.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure it out. Yeah.
And what are some of the I don't know if it's misconceptions, but what are some of the things that men, that specifically Black men, that you guys have to deal with, like especially owning your own business or being up in upper management, and a lot of times being the minority in the group, right? Being the minority in the situation. You know, I know in our field where we met, you were the minority simply because you were a man, right? You were surrounded by working with a lot of women. And now you may be a minority racially, right?
Absolutely.
Because you are working around, you know, I mean, it's your business, but you're working in this big hub of other businessmen in which the majority of them don't look like you.
No.
So what are those pressures when you are the minority of the group? You're thriving, but yet systematically things, you know, can feel a bit awkward at times, or systems can try to work against you simply because you are the minority.
I get frustrated with it. Literally just happened. It happens to me a lot. Just primarily where my office is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's frustrating. But I also have a different spin on it. Okay. As I've grown into now and I'm older, my spin on it is different, because I don't feel there's anything special with me. Okay. And I just did the work. So if I'm here and able to sit at this table,
I deserve to be here.
I deserve to be here, and I want others to be here with me. And so I kind of look at, you know, what more could I maybe do to change how this looks by being proactive in some type of way. So I was frustrated for years. Like, it was just frustration and, you know, probably blaming things that weren't really true. Where versus now it's just, man, what can I do to, you know, show our youth that, hey, it's okay to be an insurance person. You know what I mean? It's okay, bro.
I don't know. Is it considered a bit? I don't know. What's the view on like being a person that is in the insurance world?
I mean, it's not some fancy high title. You know, money's okay. So it's more so. Kids just look at flash, and you know, I think other things garner their attention. And what I'm saying is, I want to introduce more people to a great opportunity.
Yes.
You know, it's a great opportunity to change your family's life, to do and recognize what's really out there outside of your own bubble. So that's kind of where I go when I'm in those situations.
Okay.
It used to be frustration, but now I want to help. I want to figure it out.
And I mean, I know, you know, even myself, right? The perception of, to the point you just made, the perception of like a person in insurance seems salesy, right? But one of the advantages you have is as an owner, right? You can come from a different perspective. I mean, yes, we are still selling a product, we are, but in the right environment, which you have cultivated. Let's not minimize. In the environment that you have cultivated for your business, you're situated in a wonderful 630 area code situation, and you are surrounded by all types of people from all walks of life. And just because I know you, I know that you've done well in the field, right? And so one of the things I want to deviate to is, as a person that appears to have it all together, right? Again, on the outside looking in, businessman, you know, dream home, dream cars, you know, all of this stuff that many people dream about is what me or anybody on the outside looking in could look at and see of you. But how do you navigate not needing any type of financial support? And that's fine, that's in order, but still being in a place that you are you still have troubles, you still have struggles. And I mean, I know it's cliche, oh, money can't buy blah blah blah, but can you speak to that, like where everybody think that you have it all together, but yet sometimes it's a facade? Because if we you know, put our accolades aside, just being a man and having to still show up for the people that matter the most, including yourself.
It's obviously it's tough to sort of live up to some sort of billing of, hey, this should be this way. What do you have to complain about? You know, what's on your mind? And one thing money can't buy is health. You know, money can't reverse aging and the effects that it has on people that you love. And so those struggles of things that you just can't control, those will never go anywhere. I don't care how well you're doing in life. And so when those things happen, if you're not grounded, if you don't have a strong support system, some decompression methods, I don't care, they will completely deplete you, you know, if you don't have a way to cope with them. So some of those things are inevitable, and it doesn't matter what you have, it's still going to affect you.
Absolutely. I mean, we hear those cliche statements, money can't buy happiness, and we know it can't buy health. You know, good health insurance can only get you so far, you know, but at the end of the day. So what does rest and self-compassion look like for you or the black, you know, I don't want to just keep saying the black man, but you are a black man. But so what does rest and self-compassion look like for you?
Rest would be personally just not doing anything and buy some water. That's rest for me.
Drink your water, man, your business.
Yeah, and on the ocean somewhere. So like to me that's rest, where my mind doesn't have to think about you know, an office, aging parents, you know, my daughter, just things that I constantly just have on my mind.
Yes.
That's what a rest looks like. So it's not very long that rest occurs because they're constantly at the forefront of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest part, yeah, that's what. But the self-compassion, I don't know. I'm pretty hard on myself.
And there you have it. You're pretty hard on yourself. Yeah. How does Nick show compassion for Nick?
Probably by travel.
Okay.
I try to be deliberate about getting a few trips in and, you know, taking a time or some days away from, you know, everyday life struggles that are going on. So for me, but when I'm not able to do that, I probably say, again, going to work out, you know, getting some time to myself. Yeah, that's probably self-compassion. That's a tough one.
Yeah, because, you know, I like to say all the time, we are always so willing to give and show grace to others. Yeah. And so that's how I am learning to show compassion for myself, by giving myself grace in situations and not being so hard on myself, because it's so easy. Like I tell my clients all the time, like, we all have negative self-thought.
Yeah.
Right? We all have these thoughts that come in any of our heads. I don't care how strong you are, how well put together you are. You know, we have negative self-talk with ourselves. Yeah. But what happens is the way that you can reverse that mindset or not get hung up on what the psyche and you know, people say the enemy or whatever, but we all struggle with that. Yeah. Is by showing ourselves some grace. You know, I would tell Nick, take some time for yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, that could happen to anybody. I mean, the countless conversations we had about all type of stuff. But at the end of the day, I would be equally as hard or more harsh on myself in situations and not grant myself that much grace. And so that's the space that I'm in right now.
Okay.
Learning to give myself grace. And so I love the fact that you said that kind of decompress and unplug, even if it's temporary, because, you know, it's
needed.
It's necessary.
You can't keep going. Like, everybody needs that break. Everybody needs that reset. And so whatever that looks like for them, you got to do it. Yeah.
All right. What does, without getting specific, what does healing look like when you have been in the unhealed versions of yourself? You didn't feel the best about yourself. You didn't feel the best about your situation that you were in, whatever that situation may have been. And you were maybe the hardest on yourself in that time frame. What did it look like for you to get over that hump, come out of that slump, and begin to heal and feel whole again?
It definitely was a time that occurred. I was triggered by everything. You know, when you're not healed and unhealed, everything triggers you about that situation. And so it keeps you in this rut, if you will, about it. And that sucks. You know, no one wants to feel like that whenever that situation comes up. So how I knew I'd overcome it, I wasn't triggered anymore. Same situations would occur. Before, it would just have me, you know, just upset maybe for an evening. And now it's like, okay, oh well.
It was living rent free in your head. Now you done evicted them.
I'm past it. And so that's what it looks like.
Okay.
And you just feel calmer. You feel more at peace.
Yeah. And speaking of peace, what are you doing today and every day to protect your peace? What does protecting your peace look like? You know, that's a thing right now. Like, culturally, we're always talking about protecting our peace and all of that stuff. So what does protecting your peace, what does that look like, and what does that mean to you?
So just mention triggers.
Okay.
So the triggering aspects of your life, whether those are people, whether those are situations, just trying to remove those from your life. That's what being at peace would mean to me.
Okay.
And not having to overextend yourself when you don't want to. You don't have to have a reason.
You don't.
And I think
it's okay to say no,
it's
right?
Okay. That's what Unc said. It's okay.
It's okay.
You know,
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And our younger versions, that was so tough to do.
Yeah.
It's so tough to say no. But as your body starts to talk to you, you start to mature. It feels good now.
I'm sure.
It feels good.
I mean, I know that to be true. One of our offline conversations before we went live tonight, I was just explaining to Nick that, you know, today looks different and feels different for me, you know, compared to just a few years ago. And so I've been through some challenging times, and I know you've been through some challenging times. And to see where we are and to not be so triggered. Now, this guy is cooler than a fan. As y'all can tell, he is cool as a fan, always have been. But I remember those moments when you were not. Yeah. And I wanted, I always extended myself to be there for you, because I'm like, you cooler than a fan. Like, I understand these things are going on, but take a step back and peep how someone is being intentional about triggering you, or peep and understand, you know, you get knowledge is key. Knowledge is power. Yeah. And once you have a clear understanding of who somebody is in your life and what someone is in your life, you are better equipped to the response that you give to those things that people try to do to you to pull you down and stoop you down to their level.
100%. Yeah.
So you have grown leaps and bounds. Okay.
Yes.
What would Unc tell the 18-year-old Nick?
Wow. I've not been asked that before. 18. That was a long time ago. 18, what would I say? I would probably say to slow down on some decision making.
Slow down. Oh, I like that. Slow down on decision making. Okay.
I think at that point, just kind of transitioning from high school to college, you're pressured to make a decision. But that decision that you make is supposed to be your career, right? For the rest of your life. But you got to make it within a year. I would tell myself to not listen to that.
Okay.
Not listen to that. Take things slower. And what I mentioned earlier, find out more about myself. Find out what I really like to do. Okay. And so I think I would have ended up in this industry a lot sooner had I taken that advice. Yeah. But
had you taken that advice, you wouldn't have met me. You wouldn't have met some other people along the way, right? Because we met on a job. And so I agree with you. But we you know, but I mean, but that's some good advice though, honestly, because I tell people all the time, if I knew now what I knew then, you know, I would be in other places. Like fashion would be the forefront of my life. You know, I always had that desire deep within. But again, I would have missed so much of this other stuff, right? This social worky stuff, right? That has developed me. But that is some great advice. Couple things. The roommates over here talking. Okay, and so not only did they say, you know, pin your information, which I'm going to do, but they're also saying pin your barber's information.
He got me right.
Because he got you on Crispy. He got you on. You ain't gonna lie. You'll cut me if I get too close to you,
my man's got me right. Yeah.
What's his name? Where he at?
Lalo Fade.
Lalo Fade.
He's North Ave. No. By the Brickyard.
Okay, by the Brickyard Mall. Okay, like north.
That's
west side, like west suburban, right?
Diversity in Narragansett.
Okay, diversity. Okay, yeah. So you south side is diversity in Narragansett, but I'll put it. Okay, they're saying good questions. My good sister Dolores Bailey is saying we got to learn how to choose our battles very carefully. And I think that's really what you were explaining with, you know, figuring out what your triggers are, giving ourselves grace. We kind of had talked about that. And so I'm going to ask this question before we go into our closing segment.
Okay.
Okay. And so what is your personal definition of strength?
Not giving up. Because you can hit several barriers, several things that could hinder you from getting to your goal. But strength to me is the determination and the will to keep going, even if there's a barrier that tries to stop you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being resilient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, I always say that if I had been an animal, I would be a chameleon. I can survive, and not only survive, but thrive in any type of environment.
I get that.
Right?
Yeah.
I can be a part of just about anything and be okay in situations.
I believe that.
Yeah,
That fits you.
It does.
Yeah.
And so I am going to give my closing remarks, but I would love for you to, close us out. What is the best advice? And then I'll go to closing segment.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best advice that you would give a young man, other than yourself, a young man or a black man in being okay even if and when you're not okay?
Being proactive with knowing who your support system is. And I know that's tough. You can't create friends, you can't create family. But being proactive and being more social. I know sometimes when you're stressed, you don't want to be around people. But the point that I'm trying to make is when you are having those tough times, see if there's someone that you can reach out to that you can connect with.
Yes.
Because having other people around, having a support system, even if there's not much conversation, there's just hanging out, shooting hoops, whatever it is. So I would say to try to be more deliberate about meeting new people if you don't have that within your own family, and just getting a support system. That's very, very important.
And so I'm going to close us out with two things: a Bible verse and what the meaning is, but also just some parting words about healing. Okay, I think I'll start with the Bible verse, roommates, and it comes to us from 2 Corinthians 12, 9 through 10. And Paul spoke of God by reminding himself. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. This is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, for when I am weak, then I am strong." And why this is fitting for our closing segment, roommates, is this verse shows and acknowledges weaknesses and vulnerabilities as not a flaw, right? But a space where God's strength shows up most clearly. Paul isn't afraid to say he's weak because he knows God is strong enough to get him through. And what I want to say to you guys, roommates, very specifically about healing, is that healing isn't about erasing the scars. It's about learning how to live beyond the pain. Keep showing up for yourselves, even when the world tries to quiet you down. You are not alone. Roommates, I devote my time, and Nick, I devote my time and my energy to this platform because, no matter how many people show up, how many comments we get, every time I physically run into somebody, they are reminding me to stay the course. Because there's something about what we are doing here, roommates, that is bringing about peace. It's bringing about comfortability in the spaces that we're in. And it's also letting people know that they are not alone in the things that they are experiencing. You have heard me say time and time again that despite my hardships, despite my challenges, despite addictions I've had to overcome, despite things that many people on the outside looking in do not know that I've struggled with or still struggle with, I have been able to push forth simply because of God. And He keeps something lit inside of me to remind me of whose I am and who I am, okay? And so, roommates, we are signing off on yet another wonderful night with Nicholas D. Haynes. I will post all and pin all of his information. Support my guy. If you need any more support or anything, reach out to me.
Yes. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Good night, roommate.